So you want to run an Airbnb business, get your first property. Well, you're in luck, because today I'm going to teach you how to do it. I'm going to show you everything that you need to know to start your first Airbnb property. I have over 100 of them. I've been doing this for 6 years. I don't own a single one of my properties, and we can always talk about that. But I've made 10 million on the Airbnb platform to date, and I'm here to help you get started with your first Airbnb property. Please like the video, subscribe if you're new, and let's jump in. Get ready for a ride. Welcome back, Airbnb family. Always happy to help, and we've been doing a lot of videos for newbies. I think it's important. There's a lot of new people jumping into the Airbnb space because hosts are just making more money than ever. It's been a really fun year, I guess. It's been a really wild year, but it's been fun lately because people are traveling like they've never traveled before, which is good for us. So in this video, what I'm going to give you is more than just what I promised you in the beginning. Actually, I'm not only going to tell you everything that you need to know to start your Airbnb business and get your first property up, but I'm going to tell you about some topics that you will eventually learn about, that you will eventually want to know about, but you don't need to know them yet. That way, this will help prevent you from getting overwhelmed, thinking you need to know everything, because you don't. You just need to know some things. So without further ado, like I said, let's jump into number one. All right, let's start with the gimmies, the obvious stuff. You absolutely need to know how to use the Airbnb platform, but there's a lot of reasons why. You not only need to create your own account and create a listing, all the cliche stuff, but you also need to, one, add your taxpayer information. I just had a friend of mine who's been hosting for over a year found out that Airbnb was keeping 25% of his money because he never went through the proper tax process with Airbnb. So 5 minutes on the computer and we just made him an extra 25% per year. That's an example of something else that you might miss. But more importantly is you need to understand how to use the travel side, like Airbnb as a traveler side, to be able to do what we call market research and competitor research. This is super important because when you go and look at other competition, you can find out what they're charging, what quality listings that they have, and you can help define, one, with market research, whether or not a place is worth Airbnb in, and then two, if you're putting up a property in that area, how to differentiate against competitors, but also how to price your listing based on which competitors are getting booked. So you need to be able to use the map view on Airbnb to go find properties that are very similar to ones that you would put on Airbnb and start looking at how many guests they can hold, what their daily rates on the weekdays are, what are their daily rates on the weekends, do they have any discounts for 3 days, 7 days, like month-long discounts, how booked are they, how are their photos, how are their reviews, how's their description written, all of it. This is your competitor research, one competitor at a time. You will find so much information from looking at your competitors, things that you can copy and things you can avoid. That way when you jump in with your first property, you'll be ready because there's really no better way to learn to Airbnb than to Airbnb. And in this case, you're learning from people who've been doing it by looking at their real live listings and whether or not they're getting booked. That's good. Two, you're going to need to have some sales / some soft people skills if you do rental arbitrage like me. Rental arbitrage is the easiest way to get into this industry. You don't have to buy a property, put a down payment, get a mortgage, avoid HOAs, stuff like that. And you don't need the reputation required to get into co-hosting, which is where you use an owned property, but you're not even a tenant. You're a professional at this. And co-hosting requires experience to get into the game, in my opinion. So rental arbitrage is like the best of both worlds. You don't have to own the property, but you can start from scratch and nobody needs to think that you're the best at it because you're just signing a lease. It's very cool. But in order to talk a landlord into giving you a property to Airbnb, you need to understand that you're trying to get them to do something that's against their original plan. And all leases in this planet, most all leases on the planet, have some language that says you cannot sublet, you cannot collect money for other people to use the place, you cannot list on lodging websites such as Airbnb, you can't collect money for any use of the property or exchange anything of value for use of the property, stuff like that. You can't run a business out of the property. There's all sorts of different lease language that prevents your Airbnb business, and this is just because the landlords have a plan for what they expect their landlord-tenant relationship to go like, and they expect to give it to a regular tenant, and they want the scope of that relationship to be narrow and controllable, right? So these restrictions are there for a good reason based on what a landlord thinks he wants, so that way he can go get more properties. But when it's hard to get properties or hard to get tenants, right? When a landlord picks up properties and has a hard time finding tenants, then he'll be more open-minded to using someone like us. So they also will say yes to you if you're extremely charming and well prepared with your pitch, right? So that's where the sales skills and the soft people skills comes in, is you need to be able to respond to a landlord, understand what their needs are, understand how to make a presentation to them that sounds like this is good for them, and get them to say yes to your deal. It's not that it's illegal, It's just against a contract that they have pre-written out, and they're willing to change that contract. Contracts are negotiable. You just need to get the landlord like in lockstep with you enough to talk about changing the lease. That's it. It's actually not that hard once you understand that you can be a positive force in the landlord community, and this is just something they haven't considered yet, most likely. So go at it, but you need the sales skills to do it. And I teach, of course, this is one of the biggest things that I teach is how to pitch apartments and how to pitch single-family homeowners and stuff. And I've got a link in the description for my course that talks about that if that's what you're interested in. But let's get to the next one. Now, this isn't something that you need to be really, really good at. You could hire a designer, so put that there. You can hire a professional designer to help make your space look good. But now more than ever, because there's plenty of hosts with experience on the platform, when you get your hands on a property, you need to furnish it and furnish it well. You should have good colors. You should make sure it has everything that it needs, like things for the kitchen, stuff like that. It needs to have a design theme that makes people go, wow, this is cool, I want to stay here. Because somebody else with the same exact property that you just got your hands on, if they do a good job with photos and design and furnishing, they'll make more money than you. That's just the way it works, because you need to make this place attractive in order to market it as an attractive property. When I first got started in 2014, this is one of the biggest mistakes I made. First, I picked up a couple properties without the intention of marketing them on Airbnb. So there's nobody for me to learn from, by the way. There's no gurus, there's no YouTube channel, there's no courses, nothing. I just did it all on my own. And I had to bump through all of these problems. And my first 2 Airbnbs looked like bachelor pads. There's like a couch, there's a TV, there's a bed, there wasn't any art on the walls. There were pots and pans, but barely any cups. You know what I mean? I did a real just lackluster job because I actually just had to force fit a couple properties on Airbnb to keep from losing money on rents. So long story short. But I learned eventually how to make my places more attractive. And with that said, now that people have 6 years, 10 years experience in Airbnb, you need to make sure you catch up on that fast. You can't have this little quaint bachelor pad without any real decor or any design idea and expect it to be like, big time profitable like we do on Airbnb. You might make a little bit of money, but the profit really comes from making people want to stay for your place and have people clamoring for your listing. You want to outperform your competition, and design is one of the big ones. But we just alluded to number 4, which is photos. That's another thing that you don't have to be good at. Right? So don't overwhelm yourself. You don't have to be an all-star marketer. You can hire a designer and you can hire a photographer, and the photographer one is cheap enough. I teach my students how to do bracket photos using a camera to do HDR and take professional photos on their own to save themselves money at scale, because some of my students have more than 100 properties, and doing your own professional photography saves a ton of money eventually. But most of my students still don't take advantage of this knowledge because it's still just cheaper to pay a photographer $100 or $150, come in and take photos that come from years of experience behind the camera, right? So even you knowing what a bracketed photo or an HDR photo is, it's still hard to beat a really good photographer. That's just the way it is. So you don't need to know how to take photos, but you need to know that you need really good professional photos of your place. Right? So also look at their competitors and what types of photos they take. Also look back on this channel. We talk about what types of photos you need for your listing. It's there. So do your research. Now that leads to when you're about to have your first guest. Here's the cool thing. You also don't need any special knowledge of hospitality really to get started. You're on social media right now. Right? You know how to use the text box, right? So what happens is you get a booking, somebody might send you a message, have a question, stuff like that. You just respond by text in the app, like, hey, thanks for booking. Yeah, you can check in at 3 p.m. if you like. Cool, nice to meet you, bye, right? You can even text with emojis and shorthand if you want to, right? You don't need any special communication skills. But you do need one surprising piece of skill set, and this is actually what spawned this video. There's a woman in New Jersey who set up a property, and she called me and said, Sean, I set up a listing and I have no bookings. What do I do? And she shared with me her listing, and I went through the whole thing. I actually recorded me going through the whole thing so that way I could do a video on it later, because I just gave her a bunch of tips, and she's probably changing it as we speak, which means if I waited, the listing would be changed. The main thing that she did not do is she did not watch a single video of pricing strategy from this channel. And it's one of my favorite topics. Her listing, she had just the same price every single day into infinity. And the thing is if you list a listing today, your today price cannot be the same as your month from now price unless all of those prices are rock bottom low. right? You want to make a good amount of money, so you need to mark up your listing, but you can't get the same like premium price today because you don't have any time to find a guest. If your listing is open today or tomorrow, you have like 24 hours to find guests, and you need to lower the price for that. There are very rare instances that you can jack up your price when you're the only one unbooked. This is called dynamic pricing, where you raise your prices and lower your prices, and there's rules for it, and I teach it here on this channel. Sometimes you might be one of the only listings unbooked, and then next thing you know, there's nothing available. All the hotels are booked, all the Airbnbs are booked, so you're like the last one, which means you can charge a high price and somebody will need your place, not want it, but need it, and book your place at a premium. That's an example of when you raise your prices. I'm going to double back and say there is some written skill that I recommend that you have when you create your listing. Remember when we talked about competitor research, you're going to see other people's descriptions. You technically could take a good description, copy it, paste it on your account, change some words around a little bit so it's not complete plagiarism, and then pawn it off as your own. You could get away with that. But if you want to be an original and you want to show your personality and show the fact that like you're cool to stay with, you need to speak and write, well, you need to write in good conversational and persuasive English. Because here's the cool thing, 6 out of 10 like guests who travel on Airbnb, they just swipe through photos. So they don't really care so much about your description. Some people don't even care about your reviews, but you don't have any yet, that's okay. But what happens is people swipe through the photos and then they start reading your description to kind of validate if they're not sure about you yet. And that's an opportunity for you to show who you are, because unlike Booking.com or TripAdvisor or Hotels.Google.com, these places, you're booking with a business entity, you expect it, but on Airbnb, people still do expect to be booked with a human, like an actual person. So in this case, you should show that you're a human, you're a cool person, and that you will be an enjoyable host to stay at their place, right? So that written communication is going to help you out there. One surprising one that you think you might need to know, but you don't need to know it, let's put it in the don't bucket, is you don't need to know how to do housekeeping yet, okay? Because here's my argument. You need to know pricing strategy before your listing goes live so you can adjust your prices right as on the fly. If you don't adjust your pricing, then you won't get a booking today, right? And if you don't get a booking today, then you don't make any money. But the cool thing is Airbnb has a setting where you can block the listing the day the guest checks out and have a one-day bumper between guests. You can do that while you're learning housekeeping. So you can get everything set up and then learn to do housekeeping later because it's not time sensitive. It's not going to cost you money. But after a guest checks out and you block it for a day, if you want to really spend your time like figuring out how to do housekeeping, watching my housekeeping videos here on YouTube, and then kind of going in and cleaning it on your own, you can learn as you go later, right? One thing you can do, here's a fun hack, is you can hire a housekeeping company that specializes in short-term rentals. They're out there. Like I said, I started in 2014. I've been at this a long time. I hired a housekeeping company when I was new. And so if there's people who've been cleaning housekeeping for STR, short-term rentals, since 2014, there are by now, companies that have developed a short-term rental first approach to housekeeping. They're out there. There's tons of providers. So you can get somebody to come in. But what I recommend you do is if you're going to pay somebody a markup, they're going to pay somebody a bunch of money to clean your place, you should show up and watch them and take notes at what they do, what makes them good at their job, right? What do they do that you didn't think that you would need to do? And take notes and learn from them by shadowing them. Steal their information so you can copy from them later. Because a fun fact, I have all housekeepers in-house. We pay $12 to $14 an hour. It costs us $23 or $25 per housekeeping on a one-bedroom, where these companies charge $45 to $75 per housekeeping for a one-bedroom. We're paying 50%, 30% the price because we know how to do everything in-house and it saves money. You don't need to do that yet. Hire the housekeeping company, learn from them, shadow them, make a little playbook, and then when you hire your own housekeeper, you can hand them your notes. That's cool. So you don't have to get overwhelmed about housekeeping yet because there's professionals that do it. Same thing with accounting. You don't need to know how to do accounting yet. You should know how to budget a little bit and not overspend because you're buying furniture for your Airbnb and you shouldn't go nuts and blow your money. I'll say on a one-bedroom property, cap it at $5,000. Two-bedroom, three-bedroom property, cap it at $7,000 or $10,000, right? Just give yourself like a ballpark cap and don't go over it. That's your budgeting. But just get a business bank account, start an LLC, put your Airbnb under that LLC, start a business bank account, put all the Airbnb money into that business bank account, right? Then from there, you use your debit card for all of your expenses and just buy all of your supplies, pay your electric bill, pay your rent by check through that account. So now that one account has incomes and expenses, you can export that to QuickBooks, and then you can months later have an accountant go through it and start to tell you how well you're doing profit and loss, right? You can hire a professional even down the road because accounting, it's it's not really as important when you get started because it's not going to like dramatically affect your business and whether or not you're profitable. It'll just tell you whether or not you're profitable over time, and you need that data, and then you can start making adjustments to your business later. Sure, it matters, but it's not going to like make or break you when you get started. Because as you get started, and here's the thing, the reason why I'm saying all this stuff the way that I am is I know that a lot of you have been watching this channel for a long time and you still don't have a property. And what happens is it's because you guys think that's going to be difficult. And you only think that it's difficult because it's taken you so long to get started that you assume that there must be some sort of magic bullet that you need to learn first before you're ready to go out there and get it. And that's not true. There's plenty of people who spent a weekend watching this channel and then they went out and they got a property from a landlord from one weekend of watching my videos. Because they went out there and they got it. They did not know everything. I guarantee you, they didn't learn everything in a weekend, but they learned enough. They went out there, they got their listing up, and they started learning from experience after that. And that's what I want you guys to do, is understand that there's more topics we haven't covered yet on this video, but as you see those topics, you can decide, is this a time-sensitive topic that will like make me money today if I learn it? Or is this something I can delegate to someone else, or like plan to learn later because it's one of the slow-moving parts of the business? For example, resolutions, asking Airbnb to pay for a guest, like doing damage to like an item. You just need to learn that when the time comes, right? It's not something you shouldn't have a master's degree on collecting money from a bad guest before you start your business. There's just some things that are a waste of time until you need to know it. And you can learn it plenty fast using this YouTube channel. With that said, guys, I have an Airbnb host group on Facebook, The Hosts of Airbnb Automated. It's open to all of you. You just have to request to join. There's about 18,000 people in there, and there's hosts all over the world, and some of you guys are crushing it. I just had a consulting call with a guy from Dubai. He, like Nathan, if you've ever remembered my story about Nathan from Mexico City, this guy Aziz in Dubai, just like Nathan, what they both did is during COVID, they listened to exactly what they told them to do. Through this YouTube channel, I'm like, guys, COVID's here, here's what we're gonna do, X, Y, Z. And you're going to grow your business because of COVID. And you know what? Aziz went from 4 properties, like 40-ish properties, and Nathan went from 25 properties to 125 properties. Because they listened to me on this YouTube channel, they both told me on consulting calls that that's why they grew. So they're also in that host group. Like some of the biggest players in the game are my students, and you can ask them questions in that host group. And I'm actually there too. You can ask me and maybe I'll see your question and get to you. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I look forward to helping you all in the future. Remember, subscribe if you're new, if you're serious about real estate. Airbnb is one of the biggest, like coolest ways to make money in real estate. It's technically not real estate, it's hospitality. We rant about that too, but we're not gonna split hairs on this video. But as always, thank you, and I'll see you on the other side.